showed me vulnerability. I didn't know the things that were causing him stress or anxiety. And I didn't have any.
When asked who the stylist was, she explained that she's actually the costume designer on Gossip Girl. She laughed a little, admitting that working with her can feel like drinking through a fire hose because she always comes in with a clear vision and a lot of energy. For her, fashion is more than just clothing, it's storytelling. It's a silent way to communicate emotion, identity, and narrative beyond what words can express. That's how she connects with every character she designs for, through fashion and costume. In another part of the conversation, she was asked about a rumor that her husband, Ryan Reynolds, helped write part of a rooftop scene. She confirmed that he did, saying that about 99% of that moment was his contribution. While she praised Chrissy Hall's original screenplay for being one of the main reasons she wanted to do the film, she explained that small adjustments naturally happen once actors come on board. They bring in their own personality and authenticity. For her, it was important that the female perspective in the film didn't feel like someone else's interpretation of femininity. It needed to feel real, grounded in what women actually enjoy, listen to, and feel deeply. Blake Lively spoke passionately about her creative process, describing how fashion has always been a form of storytelling for her, an unspoken language that expresses far more than words ever could. She explained that as the costume designer on Gossip Girl, her approach was intense and fast-paced, joking that working with her was like drinking through a fire hose. She arrived on set, overflowing with ideas about shoes, bags, silhouettes, and full ensembles, always intent on shaping how her characters express themselves through style. That energy once seemed admirable, an actress so devoted to her craft that she blurred the lines between performer and creative visionary. She also reflected on her collaborative experiences in film, noting how her husband, Ryan Reynolds, helped refine a rooftop scene, an addition she credited almost entirely to him. She praised Chrissy Hall's original screenplay, but explained that natural adjustments happen once actors step into their roles, each bringing authenticity and personality to the story. For Lively, ensuring the female perspective felt genuine and not filtered through someone else's interpretation was essential. She wanted every line, look, and moment to reflect real emotion and identity. Music, too, played a crucial role in shaping her projects. She credited music supervisor Susan Kent and editor Shane Reed, who previously worked with her on a Taylor Swift music video, for curating the perfect sound. Reed, she noted, had never edited a full movie before, but had just come off Deadpool and Wolverine, and his taste in music elevated the film's emotional depth. Even the composer was the same as Deadpool and Wolverine, weaving a subtle creative thread between her worlds. Yet behind the creative brilliance that made Gossip Girl a cultural phenomenon lies a more complicated story. While stylist Eric Damon is officially credited with crafting the show's iconic wardrobe, insiders recall that Lively's influence stretched far beyond what most actors contribute. Her vision sometimes overshadowed the costume department, with whispers that she pushed for storylines to bend around her wardrobe choices and occasionally directed how scenes should be framed. What once looked like ambition is now being re-evaluated through a harsher lens. In 2025, Lively's once praised creative assertiveness has been recast as domineering and even toxic amid a sprawling $400 million legal battle that threatens not only her reputation, but also Ryan Reynolds' wider empire. On the set of It Ends With Us, reports suggest that her drive for control sparked escalating power struggles with director and co-star Justin Baldoni. He claims her behavior created a toxic environment, while Lively's camp insists she was standing up to inappropriate remarks and boundary-crossing behavior. What began as a story about creativity and collaboration has evolved into one about control, perception, and the high cost of artistic power in Hollywood. Each side is now lobbing serious accusations, misconduct, manipulation, defamation, turning what began as a creative dispute into a full-blown legal war. The result is a high-stakes federal courtroom showdown worth hundreds of millions, pulling both Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds into the center of a Hollywood storm. It's a twist of irony almost too sharp for fiction. The same woman who once shaped millennial fashion through Gossip Girl now stands accused of using that same influence to dominate film sets. Whether Blake is ultimately vindicated as a visionary fighting for her voice or condemned as an actress who crossed the line into toxicity remains uncertain. But one thing is clear: the assertiveness that once made her an icon of control and confidence has returned, with devastating consequences. Behind the scenes, Blake's drive to be hands-on didn't stop. She recounted how she and her team clashed with the studio over the release of It Ends With Us. "We wanted to show the whole movie," she admitted, "but they insisted we only show 20 minutes. When told the film wasn't finished, she pushed back. "It's true, it wasn't perfect," she recalled, "but we wanted it to go." In a moment that captured her relentless spirit, she revealed she personally carried the film's hard drive with her on the airplane, determined to show the full cut no matter what. That determination, critics say, has become both her greatest strength and her biggest flaw. Once an actor experiences the thrill of shaping an entire production's aesthetic, it can be intoxicating. And for Blake Lively, that influence may have become an addiction. After years of defining Gossip Girl's visual identity, she reportedly brought that same commanding energy to later projects. But this time, it didn't elevate the material. It fractured it. It Ends With Us, based on Colleen Hoover's best-selling novel, was supposed to be a raw, emotional story about Lily Bloom, a woman trapped in a cycle of abuse who fights to reclaim her power. It was poised to be a prestige project, one that could deepen Lively's legacy as both actress and producer. Instead, off-screen clashes turned it into a cautionary tale of Hollywood egos and lawsuits. The first signs of trouble appeared when Lively began promoting the movie on social media. Instead of spotlighting the film's heavy themes, she posted bright, polished images of herself in floral dresses, shared beauty tips, and promoted her own brands, from cocktails to designer denim. To many, it felt tone-deaf, as if she was using a story of trauma as a backdrop for self-promotion. Critics accused her of being out of touch, even exploitative. The backlash was swift, hashtags trended, and think pieces multiplied. Rather than retreat, Blake stood her ground. She defended her posts, saying they came from a place of enthusiasm, not insensitivity. But the internet wasn't convinced. What she saw as authenticity, others saw as arrogance. And just like that, a film meant to inspire empathy and empowerment became overshadowed by controversy, both on-screen and off. The firestorm surrounding It Ends With Us only intensified when whispers of behind-the-scenes conflict began to surface. What started as creative tension soon spiraled into full-scale legal warfare. Lawsuits began flying in both directions. Blake Lively filed suit against director Justin Baldoni and his production company, Wayfarer Studios, accusing them of fostering a toxic work environment and orchestrating a smear campaign to destroy her reputation. In her account, she wasn't just a frustrated actress. She was a woman standing up for herself in a male-dominated industry, refusing to be silenced or sidelined. But Baldoni fired back with equal force. In his countersuit, he painted himself as the victim of a calculated power play by Lively and her husband, Ryan Reynolds, Hollywood's golden couple, allegedly attempting to push him out and seize creative control. According to Baldoni, the pair weren't content with shaping It Ends With Us alone. They wanted the entire franchise, including its anticipated sequel, It Starts With Us. The dueling narrative split the industry in two. On one side stood Blake Lively, positioning herself as the brave voice against misogyny and workplace toxicity. On the other, Justin Baldoni, portraying himself as an underdog director steamrolled by two of Hollywood's most powerful figures. And hovering silently over the chaos was Ryan Reynolds himself, usually quick with humor and public charm, but now uncharacteristically quiet. His silence became its own kind of headline. Was he quietly strategizing behind the scenes, or had he underestimated just how volatile this storm had become? What should have been a prestige film about resilience and empowerment had devolved into a courtroom saga of ambition, ego, and betrayal. The stakes were enormous. Reputations on the line, hundreds of millions in potential damages, and a franchise hanging in limbo. It Ends With Us had transformed from a romantic drama into a Hollywood cautionary tale about power, perception, and the price of control. In Hollywood, control is currency, and whoever holds the rights to a sequel holds the gold. At least that's how Baldoni described it. He claimed Blake Lively was determined to claim that gold for herself. To secure full creative control over It Starts With Us. And according to those close to the production, nothing, not a director, not a studio, not even her co-stars, was going to stand in her way. At first glance, the conflict between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni seemed like nothing more than a messy creative disagreement, an unfortunate clash of egos on a high-profile film set. But insiders say the numbers told a far more staggering story. Once analysts began calculating worldwide distribution losses, canceled brand deals, merchandising setbacks, and the collapse of a potential multi-film franchise, the estimated damages being whispered in boardrooms skyrocketed to nearly $400 million. Suddenly, this wasn't just a Hollywood squabble, it was a financial earthquake capable of shaking even the industry's most powerful players. Justin Baldoni wasn't some untested newcomer. With his breakout role on Jane the Virgin and his growing reputation as a filmmaker devoted to emotionally rich, socially conscious stories, he had built an image as one of Hollywood's more thoughtful storytellers. His podcast, his public advocacy on masculinity and fatherhood, everything about his persona spoke of integrity and empathy. But within weeks of Blake Lively's accusations of toxicity on his set, that carefully crafted image began to crumble. His agency WME quietly dropped him. Long-standing podcast partnerships dissolved. Studios that had once been eager to work with him suddenly stopped returning calls. Years of professional groundwork vanished almost overnight. How did it all turn so quickly? The answer, some say, lies in the media machine. When the New York Times published a story, portraying Baldoni as a controlling and manipulative presence behind the camera, a man accused of belittling and undermining his lead actress, the damage was instant. Whether readers believed it or not, the perception stuck. Sponsors backed away, collaborators went silent, and Baldoni's team claimed his career had been deliberately sabotaged. In their telling, this wasn't bad luck, it was strategy. According to court filings from Baldoni's legal team, Lively had allegedly fed misleading information to select journalists, intending to isolate him from the industry and secure full control of the franchise. To Baldoni, this wasn't a feud, it was a chess match, and piece by piece he was losing. The tension reached new heights when Lively's attorneys filed a motion for a gag order against Baldoni's lawyer, Brian Friedman, accusing him of leaking sensitive case materials to manipulate public opinion. But Friedman refused to be silenced. He fired back, insisting that it was Lively's camp who had first ceded confidential documents to the press, forcing him to respond publicly to correct the record. Then came the bombshell. Friedman published an online repository of what he claimed was proof: emails, text messages, and digital timestamps that allegedly showed orchestrated leaks from Lively's side. The cache also appeared to include internal communications, revealing her mounting frustration whenever her creative directives, rewriting full scenes, overhauling wardrobes, or altering marketing campaigns were challenged or rejected. One email in particular stood out. It allegedly showed Lively urging the studio to downplay Baldoni's name in promotional materials and red carpet appearances, while amplifying her own presence as the film's creative centerpiece. What had started as a movie meant to tell a story about power and survival had now become one itself, a Hollywood saga about ambition, control, and the perilous cost of reputation. When the gag order request landed before Judge Louis Lyman in federal court, his ruling was swift and decisive: denied. He made it clear he wasn't about to silence attorneys unless they crossed explicit ethical or legal boundaries. That decision gave Brian Friedman free rein to keep releasing documents, and with every leak, the public narrative shifted further. For Blake Lively, it was a devastating setback. She had hoped to contain the damage and maintain control over the story. Instead, Friedman's steady drip of evidence flipped the conversation entirely. What had once been whispered rumors about a toxic set now looked, to many observers, like a calculated campaign to edge a director out and seize control of a multi-million-dollar franchise. A project that should have been a celebrated book-to-film adaptation had devolved into one of Hollywood's ugliest. Most public power struggles, a war of egos, contracts, and reputations, with $400 million and two of the industry's biggest stars caught in the crossfire. As new evidence surfaced, the portrait of Blake Lively's involvement grew even more complicated. According to documents released by Justin Baldoni's attorney, Brian Friedman, the actress wasn't just an engaged performer invested in her role, she was deeply entangled in every layer of production. Emails and testimony suggested she had muscled her way into decisions traditionally reserved for producers and directors, dictating wardrobe changes, rewriting dialogue, and even influencing editing choices. What stunned insiders most, however, was how openly she had spoken about it herself. In interviews, Lively proudly described taking creative control over aspects like editing and music selection, even recounting how she personally carried an unfinished version of the film on a plane to show fans at a book event. To some, it was a display of dedication. But to seasoned producers, it was a nightmare scenario, an actor blurring professional boundaries, taking charge of processes meant to remain behind closed doors. What began as a romantic drama about resilience and empowerment had turned into a real-life Hollywood cautionary tale about power, control, and the fragile line between passion and overreach. In Hollywood, studio protocol isn't just bureaucracy, it's a shield. It exists to protect films from leaks, piracy, and premature reactions that can destroy a project's reputation before it even reaches theaters. When Blake Lively bypassed that system by showcasing an unfinished cut of It Ends With Us, critics called it reckless. To them, it showed a stunning disregard for the delicate ecosystem that keeps multi-million-dollar productions stable and secure. But not everyone agreed. Many fans saw her defiance as a sign of passion, not arrogance. They celebrated her initiative, praising her for safeguarding Colleen Hoover's story and ensuring that the adaptation honored its source material. In their eyes, Lively wasn't breaking rules. She was protecting art. To Justin Baldoni's camp, however, the interpretation was very different. To them, this wasn't dedication. It was disruption. Attorney Brian Friedman argued that Lively's behavior went far beyond enthusiasm. She wasn't just a committed performer. She was destabilizing a set that was never hers to command, throwing the entire production into chaos. Then came the question no one could ignore. Where did Ryan Reynolds fit into all of this? According to Baldoni's countersuit, the Deadpool star wasn't a passive observer standing by his wife's side. He was an active force behind the scenes. His legal team alleged that Reynolds used his immense Hollywood influence to strengthen Lively's push for total creative control. They claimed he applied quiet but powerful pressure on producers, financiers, and even media outlets, shaping the narrative in his wife's favor. The alleged motivation, insiders claimed, went far beyond artistic pride. This wasn't just about It Ends With Us, it was about what came next. If Lively and Reynolds could secure the rights to the sequel, It Starts With Us, they wouldn't just have creative input. They would control a franchise. With merchandise, streaming exclusives, brand partnerships, and global licensing deals on the horizon, the potential windfall was enormous. What had begun as a story about collaboration and creativity was now being recast as a battle for empire building, a Hollywood power couple allegedly playing chess with millions on the line, and a franchise as the ultimate prize. If Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds could edge Justin Baldoni out of the picture, they wouldn't just be protecting Blake's creative vision, they'd be securing control of a potential multi-film empire. But that ambition comes with a contradiction. Reynolds has spent years crafting his image as Hollywood's golden boy, the charming, self-aware family man who jokes with Hugh Jackman on social media, invests in soccer teams, and sells gin with a grin. To many fans, the idea that he might be quietly leveraging his influence for a behind-the-scenes power grab seemed almost unthinkable. Yet for others, that disbelief was exactly what made the story irresistible. The higher the pedestal, the steeper the fall, and the more ruthless the game. Public opinion has been sharply divided. Supporters of Lively argue that women in Hollywood have long faced dismissive directors and toxic sets, and that her assertiveness should be seen as strength, not scandal. Why, they ask? Should she be condemned for taking charge when countless male stars have done the same for decades? But skeptics, including many women in the industry, see something else entirely. They point to Lively's earlier missteps, particularly her tone-deaf marketing campaigns that seem to trivialize the film's domestic abuse themes by promoting floral dresses and cocktail brands. When that backlash refused to fade, critics claim she conveniently recast herself as the victim of a hostile male director. Now, as the legal case unfolds, Hollywood's power brokers are watching with unease. If it's proven that Lively weaponized false accusations to undermine Baldoni, studios may